Hello and welcome. The title of the talk today is, What is our true nature? But let's begin by affirming together our opening statement. There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God. And I invite you now to take a deep breath with me, gently but fully filling your lungs and relaxing the body and releasing the breath back to universe. And bringing our awareness to this present moment, leaving aside all that has brought you to this time and all that is to come, and just being right now. And we open ourselves to divine wisdom, the Spirit, the teacher within us, so that we may listen to these words with a discerning heart and take from them just exactly what it is that we need and just leave the rest for another time. So, what is our true nature? Maybe you have an idea already in your mind. If you think back to the beginning of Advent on November the 27th, we talked about what do I expect? What do I expect? And we talked about that in relationship to what it is that we give our attention to, because what we expect, we're giving attention to. And then when we don't get what we expect, what happens to our consciousness at that time? So we talked about being aware of our expectation. And we related that expectation, which can be something that isn't helpful, we related it to hope, something that we hope for, which is a different type of expectation. And our hope is then tied in to our faith. And faith isn't just a belief, it is a substance. And our love and our faith is what pulls into our experience that which we are expecting. Now, so what is our true nature? This is a related idea. Our true nature is that part of us that was there when we were born, and it gets covered up by our education, by our development of personality. So, our true nature is our essence. It's what is at the heart of our being. Now, when we're born, it's there. But it's not fully developed. In fact, when we're born, we don't have the tools to even survive. And that's why we develop personality, for our very survival. But then, personality tends to want to take charge and gets in the way of our true nature. That's what was going on with the second day of Advent, which was last Sunday. We talked about seating ourselves at the foot of the table, putting ego, our personality, at the foot of the table, so that our true nature is then elevated to sit at the head of the table. And now, I think we have the answer. What is our true nature? I'd like to share a scripture with you. This comes from the letter of John. It's the first John letter, and it's in chapter 4. And I'm going to read two verses, verse 7 and 8, from the Lamsa translation. My beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. And everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. And I think this really answers that question, what is our true nature? Our true nature, our essence, comes from God. It's divinity in us. God is love. Our true nature then is also love. And remember the quote from St. Francis, that which you are seeking is that which is seeking you. The love of God, God is love, is what is seeking us. And it is our love that is seeking God. Let us love one another. This is an expression of the divinity. When we see the Christ in someone else, we are giving that love to them. We're not talking about a romance. In fact, in relation to romance, I've got a joke for you. What do bees do when they get married? They go on a honeymoon. But it's not this romantic love of the marriage and the honeymoon that we're talking about. We're talking about a marriage that is divine. It is our marriage, our union with the Christ within us. It is how we subordinate our personality and give the place, the highest place, to the highest part of us. And that is the love. And we give this same highest place to other people who we meet. That is how we love one another. We see the divinity in them, in spite of anything else that might be going on. I'd like to tell you a story. This is something that happened a few years ago. I know it was before the COVID, so it had to be at least a couple of years ago. I was going through a drive-through to bring some supper home. And I had been practicing the Moses Code at this time. The Moses Code very simply is the affirmation of I am that, comma, I am. It can be used as a tool for manifestation, and it can be used as a tool for seeing our oneness. And I was using that tool, practicing it as a way of seeing oneness. And I have been using it several times. And I was given an opportunity to use it at the drive-thru this day. After placing my order, I pulled up to the window and I looked over and I was in shock. I began immediately to go into a place of judgment. And I did see that I was doing it. What I saw was a young man who had tattoos all over his arms and going up his neck. And my judgment that popped into my head was they allow someone like this to serve food. Well, being aware of where my conscience went and knowing that I was practicing this Moses Code, I looked away, I took a deep breath, and I affirmed, I am that. I am. And by doing that, I affirmed my oneness with this young man. I affirmed that we are one together in God's love. My entire consciousness changed in that moment. The constriction that I'd been feeling around that judgment completely went away. And when I looked back over there at the window and saw him, he came to me. He said, I've included a cake with your order. Now, I hadn't ordered a cake. All I had ordered was the food that I needed to take home. He said, I tried one the other day, and it was really good, so I'm going to throw one in for free. I can't help but think that the love energy that came from affirming this oneness had some kind of influence on him to make this offering, because he didn't have to make this free contribution to my meal. Oh, and it was a very good cake. It was chocolate, and I like chocolate. So here we have an example of going from a state of judgment and a state of separating ourselves into other and me by my awareness and by my affirmation of oneness through the I am that I am. I went from a place of, maybe it was fear, maybe it was anger, something that was separating us, into a state of oneness and love. And it changed the entire situation. It changed the entire energy of the encounter. I want to share another scripture with you. This one is in the book of John, the Gospel of John, and it's in chapter 13. And I just want to read one verse, verse 35. Because this is an instruction that Jesus gave to his disciples. Those who follow the way of his teaching are his disciples. And that does include you and I. It's not only the 12 who were there with him at this time. And this is what he said. By this, every person shall know that you are my disciples if you have love one for another. It's very simple, this idea of love. When I'm reading the Bible and I want to know where a passage is coming from or if I'm seeing it correctly, love is my key for discernment. God is love. Jesus is saying how we'll know that we're following the way right here. It's by our love one for another. So love is my key. And I'd like to share one more passage that emphasizes this. And here we're getting a quote from the Old Testament. This is in the Gospel of Mark, and I'm in chapter 12. I encourage you to go back and check out verses 29 and 30. But I'm going to read verse 31. It is a part of this set. And the second is like to it. He just finished giving us a commandment. In fact, why don't I read the entire set? It's not a very long place. So starting at chapter 29, Jesus said to him, the first of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And that's our affirmation in the opening statement. There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God. And then verse 30. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your might. This is the first commandment. So there is that love right away. And now, and in verse 31, and the second is like to it. You must love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So when you look through and you're reading the Bible, you can always remember there is no other commandment greater than our love one for another. Loving that person who seems to be other as yourself, seeing the oneness, and then I want to share the beauty of the Moses Code for this one more time. I am that. I am. Whatever it is that you're seeing that looks out there and appears to be separate, I am that. I am. There is no greater commandment than these. That's what Jesus is saying right here. That's the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12. And I read verses 29, 30, and 31. So this idea of love, that God is love, and that we're to love one another, and that is our expression of God in this world. And in this time of the holiday season, it's a time to be filled with love, to be filled with hope and joy. It's a time to love one another. And yet so many things are going on around us that make it difficult to love. But I would like to say this: the more difficult that it is to love, the more important it is to give that love, to see the divinity in that person who is maybe difficult to love in that moment. Affirming, I am that. I am. And that's my invitation to you today. When you become aware that you're in a place of judgment or fear, you'll become aware of it because of the constrictions in your body. Your body will feel different. That's the time to take a deep breath. Remember this very simple affirmation. I am that. I am. Affirming I am that. What it is that I'm seeing. What it is that has triggered me. And then allowing the universe to fill you and this other person back by affirming again, I am. I am that. I am. I don't ask for you to believe me in this, but I do invite you to try it out for yourself and to see how it works and to see how it changes the energy in your own self. Check in with your body, noticing the constriction before and then seeing what it's like afterwards. It only works if you work it. It doesn't matter what you listen to. Hearing these words does nothing. The only value of this teaching is the practice of it. So again, I invite you to affirm the Moses Code. I am that. I am. Anytime you become aware of that you're in judgment, fear, even anger. Anytime there is a sense of separation, and you'll usually feel it by some constriction in your body. I am that. I am. I thank you for listening, and I hope and pray that something in this message given in words will bring about a change in your consciousness that brings you closer to your true nature. And what is the true nature of me, the true nature of you and everybody you meet? The true nature is love. Because God is love. And we are all expressions of God in this world. I invite you to affirm with me the prayer for protection. It can be another useful spiritual tool in your toolbox to pull out when you have need of it. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Thank you.